Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today we're finally going to talk about all of the things that I managed to read in the month of July.
It's coffee time.
So the month of July was actually pretty good compared to the past months, and I feel like I'm slowly getting back into my regular reading mood. So I ended up reading a total of 13 books, which is pretty good, and I am here to talk to you about it. There were a couple that were a little bit of a disappointment, and there were others that were really good and really great surprises, so we're here to talk about all of them. If you're new here, welcome, and let me tell you that in this channel we like to rate books with a coffee max, and we always start with the lowest rating so that we always end up on a positive note with my highest rated book of the month. Let's start with a novella that I was actually really excited to check out because it was supposed to be, and in a way it is, a new take or something a little bit fresh to the vampire myth, and that is With Teeth by Kevin Kangas. And my problem with this novella, we will talk about it in a second, but first let me tell you what it is about. We follow a married man and one of his friends as they are discussing some sort of hookers that are offering their services in the middle of the night at a children's park. So far so good, and it is kind of a new approach in a way. If you take into consideration the way that these vampires behave, the way that they are structured, all of that. And actually this novella, under 200 pages, was pretty action-packed. And towards the end, when we get to that final battle that we all expect from stories like this, it was quite entertaining. That final battle, very action-packed. Now let's talk about the things that did not work for me. There is the use of the F word in this book, which was not needed, and there is also misogyny in the book, especially towards the end. It started to get to the point where it really bothered me, and it was not like it was extremely needed for character development, for the story. It was completely unnecessary, so it really didn't work for me. I'm not saying it's not going to be an amazing novella for some people. It's just that for me, due to some of those things, I had to lower the rating. I really did enjoy a lot of things about the novella, but I felt like those things really made me give it like a lower rating. Next we have Bad Girls Don't Die by Katie Allender. This is the first book on a kind of ghost story hunting YA trilogy, and it's going to be perfect for people that are just looking for that kind of like a spooky YA story about ghosts with not too much, you know, blood or content like that. This is kind of on the mild side, and it is entertaining, but it is a slow burner for the most part. It really does start fairly slow until it kind of picks up, and then it does offer us different types of horror tropes that are all involved with huntings and ghosts and houses. So it is going to be perfect if you're looking for that. For me, I just felt like the horror aspects were not strong enough for my taste, and I feel like also this book was just too long for the story that wanted to tell me, and I don't think I'm going to move forward with the trilogy. But like I said, I have no problems with the writing or the characters. It's just that it was really long and slow paced for me, and it didn't really give me that horror that I wanted. We follow two sisters that are in a new house, and the younger sister, Casey, starts acting really weird. She starts to talk weird, things in the house disappear, reappear somewhere else, the oven turns on by itself, like things like that. And so the older sister starts to investigate to figure out what's happening in the house, what's happening to her sister. Another thing that I don't like, and I feel like it happens a lot in YA books, is that the parents are missing. where are the parents? There is these things happening in their own house with their daughters. They're acting weird, things are disappearing, noises, and the parents are like nowhere to be seen in this story. And I'm like, huh, weird. Like, where are the parents? Like, I don't know, it just makes the story so unrealistic when you start to think about it, and it's something that I personally don't enjoy. Like, they don't have to be the main character, but I just felt like in this case they were completely missing. 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. I listened to the audiobook for this one, and this is perfect if you are looking for a murder mystery that you have to solve. Now, this one started really strong. We follow Malcolm that works on a bookstore, and I was at the beginning extremely invested in the book, and then my interest started to fade a little bit. However, this book is really smart, it is really well written, and you're going to get a lot of fun out of it if you love murder mysteries, like really to solve cases. I feel like this is a good combination for people that love stories that include books, bookstores, and that also deal with a serial killer and a police investigation. So Malcolm works at this bookstore, and one day there is someone that walks through the door, and that is an FBI agent that has some questions for him. Apparently some serial killer is executing murders following a blog post that he did many years ago. He wrote a post, a blog, in which he described his perfect 8 perfect murders from books. So he took, you know, murders from books that he thought were perfect, that, you know, the killer could get away with it, and he made a blog post about it, and someone is now recreating those murders. So that is why he is now being questioned about it. Like I said at the beginning, I was really loving it, and I was like, oh my god, is this going to be like a 5 rating for me? But then towards the middle and when we were getting to the end, it just started to lose strength for me because of things that happened that I cannot mention because it will be a spoiler. But if you love, you know, true crime, murder mystery stories, police investigation, this might be one that you would like to check out. I do still believe that it is worth your time. It's just maybe it was not as perfect for me as it might be for other people. We are now going to talk about the Shivers books that I binged in a day, and I am gonna leave for you linked also the reading blog in case you want to check out to hear a little bit more my thoughts on the books. So these are short spooky stories that apparently they get creepier and creepier with time. So the first volumes are not as creepy as the last volumes. So for me, there were some that were just okay and others that were pretty good. So I'm just gonna give you quickly my rating on these. Ghost Rider was my least favorite one. We follow Amber. She moves into a new house with her family, and she starts to realize that something wicked is happening in the house. Something seems to be haunting it. There seems to be some sort of presence, some ghost in the house. So she of course has to investigate to figure out what happened in that town, in that house, and why apparently her new place is haunted. I thought it was okay, but it was not really creepy or spooky for me. I think this is like extremely mild. So for anybody that doesn't like spooky books, this one might actually work for you. The Animal Rebellion, we have here Winston. He is a geek, he loves computers, and he is being sent for the summer to a farm, and he doesn't really feel very comfortable there, but he also meets his cousin that lives in the farm, and they kind of develop a friendship as they have to fight back when the animals in the farm kind of lose control and get aggressive. This is one that had an interesting concept, but again, I thought that it was not really spooky, and this is the only one that at some point during the middle kind of dragged for me. The other ones were a little bit more bingeable, but I still love this concept that I cannot talk to you about because I feel it would spoil it. But there is some ideas in this book that I really loved, so I just kind of wish the author would have really pushed the boundaries a little bit more with the story. Terror on Troll Mountain, we follow Paul as he visits his relatives in Italy, and he also meets one of his cousins there, and they decide to go out and explore because there is this legend that a troll, a creature, lives outside in the mountain. So they of course decide to investigate, and one of the things that I do like about these book series is that the families are always present, and there's always some friendship or some kind of relationship that is being talked about, that is being kind of developed, that you know, they end up being friends because of something that happened. You know, I really like to see when characters are in danger or are in these kind of horror stories and they end up fighting together and develop a friendship through, you know, fighting for their lives. I really do like that kind of found friendship. Guess who's coming for dinner? This one was one of the ones that was a little bit more disturbing, so of course I enjoyed it a little bit more. We follow Josh. He is the perfect, you know, popular student, and he plays for the sports team, and he develops a kind of friendship with one of the outcasts of the school, Michael, that is always playing chess and he's always being bullied. So they develop this kind of friendship, and Josh soon will realize that Michael's family is not really normal and they have a very dark secret. And my favorite one from the 5, a Ghostly Playmate, and this one tells a story about Virginia. She is 11 and she used to live in a really big mansion in Alabama. They even had servants and, you know, tutors coming to teach her, and due to destiny and the parents' jobs, they had to relocate to a small apartment in New York after a financial setback. And she's having a lot of trouble to adapt to a really loud city, to actually having to go to school with other kids. Not only that, but in this apartment that they move, she makes a kind of friend, I guess, but this friend seems to be a ghost. This one was really dark, and I'm gonna leave trigger warnings for this one down below because I feel like there's something in this book that might not be something that people want to read about, so I'm just going to put it down below. But this one was my favorite because of how dark and disturbing it got at the ending. The Final Girl support group by Grady Hendrix. I also have a blog about this one, so if you want to hear all my in-depth thoughts about the book, you can check that out. Now, this has been so far actually my favorite Grady Hendrix book. I think it's because I love slasher movies, and this book had many references of horror movies that I enjoy. I also love the concept of the final girl. I absolutely loved to read about Lynette. I loved her so much as a character. I could see myself in some of her personality traces. Not everything, of course, we have completely different lives, but this was a lot of fun to read as well because there is action throughout the whole book. Now, even though I enjoyed it a lot, I still did not give it a full 5 coffee mug rating because of several things that for me personally didn't work, but I do understand why a lot of people have given this book 5 coffee mugs. We follow different final girls that most of them during the 80s, they were the only survivor after a massacre. So they meet with Dr. Carol, and it's kind of like therapy for them where they go and talk about their experiences, their PTSD and all of that. But they have been doing this for 16 years, so they are already considering of kind of not going to these therapy sessions anymore when one of the final girls appears brutally murdered, and now all of them are scared that they're going to be next. And like I've mentioned before, I do love Lynette as a character, and I absolutely loved to be able to kind of get to know her better and better as we were given more information about her past throughout the book. I feel like there were a couple of things that can be controversial in the book, and I'm going to leave the trigger warnings down below. But what really didn't work for me was all the twists and turns that the author tried to put all together in the third act. Now, I feel like those twists and turns were not surprising for me. They didn't like wow me, they didn't have an impact. So when I was reading those twists and turns, I was kind of unaffected by it. I don't know if it was just me, but they didn't like surprise me, they didn't catch me off guard, and I feel like that's the part that I didn't like so much, that they didn't land for me. But the final battle, if you want to call it like that, like the last act that you always expect in a slasher story, was a lot of fun. It was really well executed, and all in all, I feel like this book is such a great horror story, perfect for people that love slashers and horror movies. Then I listened to The One by John Mars, and I have to say I really enjoyed this one. It was extremely addictive and it just grabbed you from the very beginning. It is a book about a company that has developed a DNA test that is going to tell you who is your perfect match. So you can just register on the website, provide a sample of your DNA, and if they have a match for you, they will let you know, and you will have the choice, you know, do you want to meet this person, yes or no. It can be anybody from all over the world, so that opens a lot of possibilities. The book is told from different points of view, so we follow different couples that have found each other thanks to this website. The couples are so different, and I was so invested with all of them, and even though the chapters are kind of short and they jump from one couple to the next, it was not confusing at all. It was engaging all the time, and I thought this was such a great exploration of human beings and the concept of falling in love, and how can you tell if somebody is your other half. This was one of those thrillers that it is such a page turner, like you need to keep going because you really want to know until you get to the big finale, because at the end of the day, this was just a show. I actually have tried to watch the Netflix adaptation of the book, but I only watched the first episode and it was so different from the book and it was so boring that I didn't keep watching. If you watch the show, let me know if it gets better, if it's really worth my time, because the first episode was just boring. I finally got to read I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. When it comes to true crime, there is so many ways that you can tell a story, and I felt like Michelle had done so much research. She knew so much about true crime, especially about the Golden State Killer, that her work, it's just so well put together. Unfortunately, she did not live to see this book published, and her friends and family were the ones that finished it for her, but you can definitely tell that there are things missing here and there, and I feel like the book would have been even better, of course, if she would have had the chance to finish it herself. And I feel it's such a pity because she spent so much time investigating it and she helped so much in this investigation. Who knows if they would have been able to catch the guy if it would not have been for her. So I just feel so sad that she didn't get to see this published. She wanted to tell the story with so much heart and so much passion, and she didn't only want to focus on the gruesome like details and the killer. She also wanted to give a voice to the family of the deceased, and I really appreciated that. And you can tell in the book how invested she was, and her writing is impeccable. If you love true crime and you love watching true crime documentaries as much as I do, I feel like this is a must read, and you're gonna get so much information. Sometimes I wish they wouldn't have jumped so much on the years, because that can get a little bit confusing, but all in all, it was an amazing story. And after, like shortly after this book was published, the Golden State Killer was actually caught, and it's really, really like chilling, because I do feel like this book helped catch him. Come With Me by Ronald Malfi. I got this one from NetGalley, and I am so happy that I read it. This is such a good thriller with some horror elements to it. This has been probably one of my favorite thrillers that I have read this year, for sure. The story follows a grieving husband, Aaron. He suddenly loses his wife, Allison, and he's having a lot of trouble coping with the loss of his wife. And as he is going through some of her stuff, he starts to make some discoveries that makes him question if he actually knew his wife. This was a very immersive, amazingly beautifully written book, and it's combining kind of a mystery thriller with a true crime story. This is another one that is going to be perfect for people that love police investigations combined with a serial killer, and you get to follow Aaron as he starts to slowly figure out who Allison was and finds out more about her than he ever did while she was alive. This was kind of a slow burn, but at the same time you were getting so much information and you were getting so much joy of reading it. It was definitely a page turner, and this has been my first Ronald Malfi book, but I am definitely going to be checking out his other works after reading this one, because I just loved his writing. And last but not least, we have Survive the Night by Riley Sager, the controversial opinion of the month, because a lot of people didn't like this one, but I absolutely loved it. So I've talked about this also a lot on my channel. I have a reading blog with all of my thoughts on the book, spoiler free if you want to check it out. Charlie wants to leave campus ASAP. There is a serial killer on the loose that 2 months ago killed her roommate, and she has not been able to move on. So she goes to the ride board to see if someone is going to be willing to share a ride with her, because she doesn't own a car. And she finds Josh, a guy that seems normal, and he is also looking for someone to share a ride back home. And so they decide to drive back home together that night. This is your typical cat and mouse game, and what I really enjoyed about this book is that it was a book that I just could not put down. I really needed to keep going. I wanted to know the tension, the atmosphere in the car between Charlie and Josh was fantastic in my opinion. And I also love that this book is kind of touching also again the true crime stories, which is something that, as you probably noticed, I am here for. And the car ride was my favorite part of this book as well. I know a lot of people have problems with the ending specifically, but it didn't bother me at all. I know also a lot of people had a problem with Charlie being so naive and kind of dumb, of course, for just going into a car with a stranger. But from the very beginning, the way that Charlie is described, and let's not forget that she's young, I think it does fit the character. I've done dumb things myself when I was younger. I have shared the cars with strangers, so it's not like it's impossible. So I feel like as a character, it is fitting to her personality, so it didn't bother me. It is also based on the 90s, and I feel like it's going to be perfect for people that love thrillers that deal with serial killers, thrillers that make you question who is good, who is bad. And I love that this book is leaving kind of everything a little bit gray. The more you know about Charlie, the more you doubt. The more you know about Josh, the more you doubt. And I love books that make me think and question things and try to figure things out by myself. And I felt like this one, in the psychological level, did also a great job. Alright you guys, so that is everything that I managed to read in the month of July. Definitely better than the last month, so I feel like I am finally catching up a little bit with my reading speed, which is amazing. Let me know down below what you thought about these books. Also, what is the best book that you read in the month of July? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching you guys. I really appreciate your support. Please give the video a big thumbs up, and I hope to see you all as always in our next coffee time. Bye.